Have you noticed that Donald Trump has stopped repeating his old line about surrounding himself with best people since taking office for a second term? During his first administration, that was a constant refrain. The qualifications for being in Trump's circle have shifted noticeably since then. These days, the path to influence seems to run through appearances on Fox or adopting the persona of a Fox host. Media visibility alone isn't enough. The key requirement now is unwavering loyalty to Trump himself.
That demand for personal allegiance is at the heart of the growing feud between Bondi and Patel.
And they're competing to demonstrate their loyalty, and in the process, they've turned on each other. Recently, Bondi has been making moves to catch Trump's attention, most notably by going after James Comey. An effort underscores how internal rivalries in Trump's orbit have escalated into what some are calling a MAGA civil war. You don't have to admire James Comey, just like you don't have to be a fan of every late-night comedy host.
Former FBI director and outspoken Trump critic James Comey is expected to be indicted by the Department of Justice in the coming days. At this point, it's not even clear what Comey would be charged with. Sources tell MSNBC that one component may be an allegation of lying to Congress almost exactly 5 years ago during testimony about whether he authorized a leak. And that 5-year anniversary is actually quite important here. Comey's congressional testimony at issue was September 30th, 2020, as you see, given there remotely, which means that the 5-year statute of limitations expires next Tuesday, September 30th, 2020. If this Department of Justice, the Trump Department of Justice, wants to charge Comey with this dubious crime, well, it needs to do so before then. Both Comey's lawyer and spokesperson for the U.S. Attorney's Office declined comment to MSNBC, but this looks on its face like a wildly blatant abuse of the justice system, certainly far exceeding anything that we have ever seen since Watergate, at least. It's the culmination of an explicit, in the open effort to use the Department of Justice to persecute and prosecute Trump's political opponents and perceived enemies. Not for crimes they have actually committed, not motivated by some events or facts that come to light, investigations, not because of the facts or the law, but from a desire, oft-stated by the President of the United States, to punish people who criticize him publicly. I mean, just look at the facts as we know them so far. This indictment is expected to come from the Eastern District of Virginia, and of course, that would be the same jurisdiction where prosecutor Eric Siebert was pushed out just last week for refusing to bring bogus charges against New York Democratic Attorney General Letitia James and for raising doubts about the investigation into Comey as well. Siebert was then replaced with one of Trump's former personal lawyers. Lindsay Halligan is a 36-year-old Florida insurance lawyer with absolutely no experience as a prosecutor, has never prosecuted a single case, but who is presumably willing to bring whatever charges the president wants, regardless of the evidence. This appears to be the reason she's being installed. Again, this isn't happening behind closed doors. It's happened right out in the open. Trump said he wanted the Siebert out, right, to the cameras. And then in a directive to Attorney General Pam Bondi that may or may not have been intended to be a private message, but was posted publicly, Trump wrote, quote, "Pam, I have reviewed over 30 statements and posts saying that essentially same old story as last time, all talk, no action, nothing is being done. What about Comey? Adam, Shifty Schiff, Letitia, they're all guilty as hell, but nothing is going to be done." Adding, quote, "We can't delay any longer. It's killing our reputation and credibility. They impeached me twice and indicted me 5 times over nothing. Justice must be served now. President DJT."
You don't have to admire James Comey, just like you don't have to be a fan of every late-night comedy host. But what's clear is that he's become a target in the broader expansion of Donald Trump's efforts to consolidate control. And there's a reason Trump is going after Comey. He knows liberals aren't eager to defend him, and Republicans certainly won't. In that sense, Trump has often chosen his adversaries strategically, picking people unlikely to spark widespread sympathy or media support. That wasn't the case with his feud against Jimmy Kimmel, which turned out to be a misstep. But when it comes to Comey, the calculation is obvious. Pam Bondi has now taken up the same line of attack, and Bondi has shown she's ready to follow suit. And why? Recent reporting suggests the answer may lie in the escalating feud between Bondi and Patel, a clash tied to the controversies surrounding the Epstein files. This internal struggle is adding fuel to the so-called MAGA civil war, with each side vying to prove their loyalty to Trump by outdoing the other in aggressive attacks.
Paranoid Pam Bondi raged about Keystone Cash over Epstein crisis. Attorney General Pam Bondi claimed that Kash Patel's FBI was trying to destroy her by leaking information about the battle raging with the Trump administration over the Jeffrey Epstein case. Bondi has faced months of criticism over the failure to provide new revelations in the case, which White House officials mistakenly thought would blow over quickly, according to the Wall Street Journal. A series of key missteps has helped keep what is arguably Donald Trump's most hated issue squarely in the spotlight, with many of the MAGA faithful blaming Bondi for the fiasco and demanding she be fired. When Bondi complained to the White House about the criticism, Trump essentially told her to toughen up, according to the Journal. Other officials told her to stop looking at social media and lashing out at the people who were posting. But Bondi told the White House officials that FBI leadership, including Patel, was out to get her and was leaking information about internal disputes. Administration officials who tried to broker peace concluded the situation had gotten out of control because both sides had screwed up, sources told the Wall Street Journal. Bondi downplayed the conflict in a statement to the Journal. Our priority is to continue working together with the FBI to make America safer by ensuring murderers and violent criminals face the most severe justice. She said Patel and the Bureau have worked tirelessly with my agency and state partners, she added.
Pam Bondi's allies like to say she's been working tirelessly.
But critics point out that it's Kash Patel who's made that claim about himself. In reality, his public schedule has raised questions.
Reports suggest he's been seen frequently at high-profile restaurants in New York, spending late nights socializing rather than focusing on pressing issues. For example, it reportedly took him nearly 2 days to get to Utah after the tragic shooting at an event connected to Charlie Kirk, casting doubt on just how dedicated he really is.
This lack of urgency has only added fuel to the ongoing feud between Patel and Bondi. Both are under
Immense pressure over the fallout from the Epstein files controversy. Trump is said to be angry, demanding that they prove their loyalty and find a way to contain the damage. Tensions running so high, it increasingly looks like one of them will have to take the fall.
At the moment, Bondi may be in the weaker position. She's been criticized for overpromising and under-delivering, and Trump's patience with her appears to be wearing thin. The Epstein scandal has left both her and Patel scrambling.
The bigger picture is an administration in disarray, led by a president who reacts angrily whenever outcomes don't go his way. As Lawrence O'Donnell recently pointed out, turmoil is becoming harder for Trump's team to disguise.
Well, the breaking news of the night, reported by MSNBC's Ken Delanian, who will join our coverage this hour, is that federal prosecutors have written a memo arguing against trying to charge former FBI Director James Comey with crimes. Donald Trump has publicly demanded that James Comey be charged with lying to Congress, which is only possible in the next 6 days before the statute of limitations would run out and make it impossible to charge James Comey on that. This week, Donald Trump forced out the U.S. attorney who he personally installed in the Eastern District of Virginia after that U.S. attorney refused to try to bring charges against James Comey. Donald Trump replaced that U.S. attorney with a woman who has never tried a case of any kind in federal court and has never been a prosecutor, but did serve as one of the lowest ranking members of Donald Trump's criminal defense team. Donald Trump's attempt to illegitimately use federal power, including federal prosecutorial power, literally knows no bounds in either direction. There's no rule too small for Donald Trump to break and no rule too big for Donald Trump to break. And as you just heard today, Donald Trump had a statue of him and his pal Jeffrey Epstein removed from the National Mall, where the statue had a permit to appear this week until Sunday at 8 p.m. The National Park Service removed the statue this morning, as they said, due to it not being in compliance with the permit. But the National Park Service refuses to say how the statue was not in compliance. It's a 12-foot tall statue, as you just saw, bronze painted statue of Donald Trump and the man who said he was Donald Trump's closest friend for 10 years, the sex trafficker and raper of children, Jeffrey Epstein, who Donald Trump said was a terrific guy. The two men are holding hands in the statue and smiling at each other. That statue made Donald Trump the first president in history to have a statue of himself placed in Washington during his presidency. The National Park Service possibly violating its own permit rules to take down the statue is the least, as we said, of Donald Trump's abuses of presidential power. Last night, in a special election, voters in Arizona gave our first guest tonight one more member of the Democratic team in the House of Representatives. House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries will be joined on the House floor by Democrat Adelita Grijalva, who won a special election for the House seat held by her father, Congressman Raul Grijalva, until his death in March of this year. That means one more signature for the discharge petition that can force a vote in the House of Representatives to release the Epstein files. Semaphore reports that Republican Congressman Thomas Massie is, quote, declaring victory on his move to force a vote on releasing the Jeffrey Epstein files after the election to fill a vacant Arizona House seat. And he says House Speaker Mike Johnson and some of the powers that be in D.C. are in full panic right now about it. They came back and tried to get the four of us to take our names off the petition, Massie told Semaphore after an event in his northern Kentucky district. They asked some of my colleagues who are co-signers, and they actually threatened them politically, not physically. Massie said if Johnson uses parliamentary tactics to evade a vote, that there's enough notoriety on this issue that people will know that he's sweeping this under the rug. He also said if there is language included in a bill to sideline the petition, those who vote for that bill are part of the cover-up.
This administration is in deep crisis. Donald Trump wants to project inevitability, as if he can't be challenged, but that simply isn't true. He's losing repeatedly in the courts, a court of public opinion, and in approval ratings that continue to slide. He is not unstoppable. The reality is that he can be defeated, but only if we commit to taking up that fight.
That's exactly what we intend to do here. And if you want we serve with Froger Wagshur. If you want to support this effort, you can subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and if you've made it this far,